Yo, what's up everybody, it's Victon here with another little mini guide. We're going to be going over how to set up and configure damage calculations for any minion build out there. I think there's a lot of kind of, not necessarily confusion, but I think a lot of people are doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing on the configuration that aren't really realistic in terms of DPS numbers. So I feel like we kind of need like a standard as a community for what should go on your configuration. Now, I'm not saying that what I'm going to be doing is perfect, but I think it's certainly what I've done for all of my builds, and I do think it's pretty close to as realistic as you can get for setting up a configuration. And there's a few things I just wanted to mention that I think people are doing that really boost your damage that kind of shouldn't be doing. I'm going to use this build here, and absolutely nothing against this build at all. This is Pigeons Carrion Golem Build. I'm actually going to link it in the description for you guys. It's a fantastic build. There's no getting around that. I released a video last night about the best build that I have played for Carrion Golems ever, basically, and someone linked me this in the description, and it's an awesome build. It does more damage, and it has more ES. It costs, good lord, it costs probably double what I paid, probably even triple what I paid, but it's a min-max build, right? That's what you get when you pay all that money, right? So it's still a fantastic build, and you'll note when I make these changes in the configuration and a couple other things on the items, that it's still going to be more DPS. So again, not trying to knock his build at all. It's still a fantastic build. Check out his build video for it. It's a great watch. But I do want to make a point, because I do think I see a lot of this going on out there, and I just kind of want everybody to kind of be on a standard for this, so we kind of all have the same numbers. Because for example, when I say, you know, 21 million DPS per golem, and that sounds awesome, and then someone else says, you know, 15 million DPS per golem, but they don't have something that I have checked, that could make their build seem like a lot less DPS than my build. And if someone has something checked that probably shouldn't be, you know, then they say 50 million DPS per golem, when in reality it's not that much, so they seem like they have double the damage that the build that I had, when in reality that's not the case. So it kind of works both ways. And even so, for like the builds that have, you know, much less DPS, I want you guys to have the correct amount of DPS. I get asked this question all the time in my stream and on my comments, saying, you know, hey, my DPS is way less than yours, but I have very similar gear. What's going on? The answer is always in the configuration tab to make sure that your guys are setting it up appropriately. So let's just go ahead and talk about that today. It's not going to be that long of a video, but I just wanted to mention a couple things. So let's go ahead and head over to the configuration tab. And just so you guys know, this is specifically for minions, right? That's what I'm kind of basing this on. It works for any type of minion builds: Carrion Golems, Spectres, zombies, skeletons, all that good stuff. Alright, so let's start here. So let's start on the right side, and then we'll kind of work left. So he definitely has this perfect. So you guys got to make sure that when we have this over here, is the enemy a boss? It definitely needs to be Cyrus. Never pick no, because that's just not accurate. Anytime you're doing mapping or anything like that, the white monsters, the rare monsters, the magic monsters, those are going to die instantly. So it really doesn't matter calculating your damage based off of that. What it really matters is basing your damage off of bosses. So we're going to hit Cyrus here. And as you can, I'll just give you an example, right? So Cyrus, we're at 51 million, and then hit no, you're up to almost 60 million. So it's a big difference. So we definitely have to hit Cyrus. And this actually doesn't matter. You can have awakening level 8, 9. It doesn't change the damage at all, so that doesn't matter. Moving up, we'll go up to, let's see here. Let's go over. I'll talk about this here in a little bit. I guess one thing I can do, I'll just go over the things that I would change on this, and then we'll go over all this other stuff so you guys can kind of understand the rest of it. So one of the things, the biggest thing that I would change on this, which I do not feel is a good representation of the actual damage of the build, is Pride Aura Effect. So the way this works for Pride Aura Effect is, let's see if we can actually go to the skill itself, and I can show you guys. Where's Pride? Pride. Okay, so cast an aura that causes nearby enemies to take more physical damage. Now, there you can say right there. So raising up to 44% as they stay in the aura for 4 seconds. So they take almost double the amount of physical damage if they stay in the aura for up to 4 seconds. Now, here's where it comes into play, where I don't think that people should be having it as maximum effect. So, like I said earlier, you're never going to have a moment when you're doing maps or anything like that where enemies are going to be in the aura for longer than 4 seconds. It's just not going to happen. Everything dies instantly, like the white monsters, the rare monsters, the magic monsters. And then when you have builds like this that have this much damage, and even, this isn't, like I said, this isn't even accurate. Even when you have builds that have, you know, 20 million DPS per, I think in my build I was only at like, you know, 13 million DPS per, and everything instantly dies, even bosses. That's just, it's not accurate to say that you're going to be in the aura effect for 4 seconds. And by the way, that means the aura effect around you, right? So you have the aura for Pride, so you have to physically stay within that area of effect of the boss and run around in circles to the boss for up to 4 seconds for that to, you know, get that full effect. And that's just, it's never going to happen when you, especially when you have this much damage. So I personally think it probably should be a standard. Most people do this. I don't see maximum effect on most builds, but occasionally I'll see it. And it's a little disappointing because I don't think it's very accurate. So we're gonna go ahead and excuse me, and take that off, and you guys can see how big of a difference this makes. So maximum effect, in my opinion, should always be initial effect. 37 million. Look how much of a huge difference that is. 51 to 37. And again, even past that, I think we just need to have a standard, right? And if we have initial as a standard, then people cannot be confused by, I mean, even just that change alone, right? If you just do that change, someone says, hey, I got 37 million DPS per golem, versus, hey, I got 51 million DPS per golem, right? Obviously 51 sounds insane. Whereas most people are doing initial effect. So let's just keep that as a standard. 37 million is even still fantastic. So we're gonna go up. Now I do think we can go ahead and keep Avian's Might and Avian's Flight checked. However, it's not really exactly accurate DPS because it's not always going to be up. But at the same time, I think we can go ahead and everybody can just leave this checked, and it's totally fine. And if you have on your gear aspect of the spider, there will be a checkbox up here for does the enemy have spider webs attached to it? That's fine. You can check mark that, and you can put 3 spider webs. Now that's kind of the same thing as this. Not all monsters are going to have 3 spider webs on them at all the time. Same thing with Avian's Might. It's not going to be up all the time. If you really wanted to do it, you could think of it as like half the DPS. It's probably about half the DPS is realistic. Let's see, so 28 million to 37 million, right? So realistically, it's probably somewhere in the middle of there, but it's fine. I think we can just leave this as the standard of just clicking this, and then same thing with spiders. Go ahead and put the 3 spider webs. I think that's fine. Definitely, if you're having golems, guys, you definitely want to have number of nearby non-golem minions as at least 10. That is the maximum. So the reason we're doing this is it's a huge damage boost, and that's just what golems get. They get more damage per non-golem minion nearby. So a lot of people have this not configured correctly, and they're like, wow, my damage is way less. So let's check it, right? So 24 million up to 37 million. It's a huge difference. So make sure you guys have 10 up here, and that is very standard and realistic. So definitely have that checked. Feeding Frenzy is active. We definitely have that checked. If you have Feeding Frenzy in your gear, check that as well. Now, here's one of the other things that I don't know if it's necessarily controversial, but it's just what I do. I don't think it is realistic for you guys to say that your minions will have permanent 3 charges of power charges and frenzy charges. It's just not realistic. So basically, you're getting power charges and frenzy charges from your specters, from your host chieftain and your 2 carnage chieftains. And it's just not realistic, even in boss fights where they last a little bit longer, for your dudes to have maximum charges. I have always done 2 and 2. Not a huge deal, as you can tell, right? 32, let's see, 32 to 37, not a big deal, but I just don't think it's realistic. So this one's kind of like up in the air. I personally would do 2. I've always done this for my builds. I always do 2 and 2, just because I think it's a little bit more realistic, but this one's kind of whatever. It's not as important as like that initial effect and maximum effect. Now everything else down here is actually pretty much not important for the DPS of your build. So we're going to go ahead and skip that. So what we're going to do now is talk about, actually, well, before we go over that, I'll show you one thing. So now he has a bottled faith in his build, right? So this says, as you can see, 1.96% critical strike chance against enemies on consecrated ground. So if you ever have a bottled faith in your build, make sure in your configuration that you go over here is the enemy on consecrated ground. That's a big deal because that's where you're getting that critical strike chance. So let's do this. We're at 32 million. Let's uncheck this. We're at 29 million. Pretty big deal. But let's also go to calculations. We'll talk about calculations a little bit more here in a little bit. But let's go to the chest. And you can see critical strength chance is 43. Let's go back and let's check that mark. And we'll go back to calculations. And it goes up a little bit. So we went up like 5%. That's pretty good. So critical strength chance is now 48%. So that is only if you have a bottled faith, though. Only if you have a bottled faith. Very good. So let's move on to the next thing that, so if you're like copying a build over from PoE.Ninja, it's kind of annoying, but it always does this. Let me kind of just walk you guys through it. Let me find it over here. And discipline works, but let me find haste. Okay, haste. So when you copy a build over from PoE.Ninja, it will always have these unchecked, right? It'll have these checked. For some reason it does this. I don't know. It's quite annoying. It'll have the vol versions of these automatically check. You just need to make sure you go in here and you click on the regular versions. That's going to do a couple things. That'll show you the accurate unreserved mana. Like for, let's just go like this, right? So it says we have 27% unreserved mana. That's not the case. And also DPS, right? So it says we have 35 million. Let's go and uncheck that. And now we have 32 million. That's accurate. Let's never include the vol versions because that's going to not be up all the time. So anytime you have a vol skill and you're copying over from PoE.Ninja, just make sure you go in and you click the regular version of the skill instead of the vol version. Very good. So next, we're going to talk about Animate Guardian. This is a big deal. A lot of people do different stuff on their builds when they showcase their POBs. They do very, very different things. For example, even myself, right? I use my Animate Guardian on some of my builds, and then I don't on other of my builds. And I try and do that, like, for example, on my, certainly on my early starting league builds, I will not have Animate Guardian calculated on that because you don't have an Animate Guardian at that point. For all of my min-max builds, I typically do. On my last build, I have, not even my last build, I think that my last few builds, I've actually started not including my Animate Guardian on that because a lot of people comment that they don't like running Animate Guardian. It always dies for whatever reason it's dying. Mine doesn't die, but y'all's does. I just leave it off. And I typically do actually what he did is I put it on a flask and you can uncheck it pretty easy. Okay. So what he did is I actually do like that, is putting it on a flask so you can just basically uncheck mark your Animate Guardian and you can check it pretty quickly. But again, if we have a standard, I think that is important to everybody to be doing the same thing because of how much damage an Animate Guardian has. Having a standard is pretty important. So I think what he did is right. I think this is what we should do as a community. We should put it on a flask, and I'll show you guys. As you guys can see over here, right, it says AG, and then under that it's got the stats that the Animate Guardian gives your build. Okay, so 20% less damage from hits for 4 seconds. And curse enemies with vulnerability on hit. Nearby allies have Culling Strike, which is basically a 10% more multiplier. 50% crit multi. All of that is coming from your Animate Guardian. I agree we should put it on a flask, but I think we should uncheck mark it as a standard. Because I don't know, that's just my opinion. If you guys disagree with that, and I'm actually probably fine if you guys disagree with it, we might decide that we should include it just because it's up and running all the time anyway, so let's include it. I don't know, actually, so what do you guys thought? Should we include the Animate Guardian or should we not include the Animate Guardian as the standard for calculating DPS? How about I leave that one up to you guys, because it's a huge difference. Like, look at this, 25 million up to 32 million. That's a massive difference. And again, we need to at least find something that's a standard so people can compare their builds appropriately. So if we just uncheck mark this, right, now we're at 25 million. It does, what is it? It's a 25% more damage on this. Now, I would say one thing, though, on this Animate Guardian that he has specifically, and he might be fine, I don't know, because he has such a min-maxed build that maybe his Animate Guardian is totally fine and it doesn't die, I don't know. But I can tell one thing, he has nearby enemies take 9% increased physical damage. That's coming from a helmet, where he has put on the helmet that has the modifier, it's an elder modifier, nearby enemies take 9% physical damage. So if he's doing that, he does not have the Mask of the Stitched Demon helmet, which scares me personally. That helmet in particular basically makes your Animate Guardian immortal. It means it never dies, but you're losing out on the DPS that the nearby enemies take 9% increased physical damage gives you, so it's a trade-off. Now, I personally run super scary in-game content, like the bosses, like the Feared, 100+% quantity of the Feared, and you cannot, in my opinion, you cannot run Mask of the Stitched Demon on your Animate Guardian, or he's gonna die. So that 9% increased physical damage to me is unrealistic, because in-game scenario cases, you need the Mask of the Stitched Demon for your Animate Guardian to not die, otherwise he's just gonna die over and over. But again, maybe he's fine because he's got a freaking crazy build and his AG is chillin', I don't know. But I would definitely say for you guys that don't have like 2 mirrors, 3 mirrors, 4 mirrors into your build, do not get a helmet like that, because you definitely want the Mask of the Stitched Demon, otherwise your dude is gonna die, and it's not worth it. But everything else on there is fine, like the nearby enemies have critical strike multiplier, the culling strike, all that's good stuff. Curse, vulnerability on hit. I don't know where his 20% less damage taken for hits for 4 seconds coming from, but you know, whatever, that's a defense thing, not a damage thing. So everything else on is fine. I'm gonna say let's uncheck that, and then I like putting it on Flask so we can check mark it and pretty quick. But for me at least, I'm gonna uncheck. That's what I've done on my last few builds, is I've not had it on there. So now we're at 25 million. So this is kind of just showing you guys, right, the difference. We're at half the damage that he has advertised his build doing, for essentially the same that I have advertised my build for doing for my setup in the configuration. It's such a big difference. And it's just a few check marks here and there. The biggest one, of course, being the maximum effect, up to 35 million. So, you know, if we get a standard going, then I think everybody will be happy and we can showcase our damage a lot better. Again, you know, people being POB warriors, it's whatever at the end of the day. Can your build kill fast? Do you survive? That's the big important questions. But when you're doing these min-maxed versions, I do think it is fair for everybody, including the people that are just trying to do those min-maxed versions, and they really want to see how much damage they can get. And then they're like, oh no, I only have, you know, 16 million DPS compared to this guy's 50. Oh my god, my build sucks. Well, maybe you have some stuff configured incorrectly, or maybe he has some stuff configured incorrectly that you guys should check. So that's kind of what I've been doing here. Now, one thing I was curious about, and he might be able to answer this if he ever watched this video, but maybe even any of you guys, effective shock. I'm not sure why he has 20 here. I know that he has shock from his ring right here, shock nearby enemies for 4 seconds when you focus, that's fine. But I'm not sure why he has 20% increased effect, because that does change it. Let's see, 25 million down to 23 million. So just curious on that. I'm gonna leave it here because I just don't understand it. Maybe there's something I just don't know. So okay, so the last kind of things that I was going to talk about is, I guess first, really quick, just give you guys a tip here. Let me see. Go up to our race Spectre, and just in case you guys didn't know this, so if you have a race Spectre, like for example, if race Spectre is your main skill, you can go over to manage Spectres, and you can find your Spectres in here, and you can even see that he is running Carnage Chieftain and Host Chieftain, so that's pretty cool. We can see what Spectres he's running. But if, for example, if your main build is like a Syndicate Operative, you would scroll down to Syndicate Operative, and you would just drag it and drop it over here, and you would save, and you would come over here, and you would select Syndicate Operative, and you're good to go. And you can actually even select like his attacks for Syndicate Operatives. It's the default attack, and there you go. You see what his damage is for the Syndicate Operative. So that's just a random, real quick, small tip. So let's go over to our calcs. This will be the last thing I talk about, calcs, and normally it'll be something like, oops, let's go to maybe helm. Normally it'll look something like this, and this is your defenses. So this is my effective health pool. As you can see, this is the effective health pool, but you want to check your you know, your zombies, your Carrion Golem, your Spectre. So we want to go over here and find it. He has it kind of listed differently, but we would go down to chest probably. Yep, so that's his Carrion Golem. This will not be checked. Show minion stats. We want to check mark that. And that's going to give you the minion stats. It's everything here in the orange. And also their stats are down here as well, but this is for their DPS. So you can see right here it has the impale chance. That is very important, especially for Carrion Golem builds, zombie builds. So you want the impale chance to be as close to 100% as possible. So it's always good to look at this. It's good to look at the crit chance, and it's very good to look at the accuracy rating as well. So nothing in here that we're going to change. It's just good information for you guys to see. You can also come down here to the bottom here and see, this is good information for you guys as well. Effective health pool of your minions. So you can see that my Carrion Golems have an effective HP pool with fire, cold, and lightning of just under 1.3 million HP, which is very, very good. And then their physical HP is about 240,000. So pretty good. And you can compare, you know, doing different stuff to, like if, for example, you know, minion life or anything like that, it would up these numbers pretty significantly. So let's even go, a lot of people are curious about their Animate Guardian. So let's go to our Animate Guardian. If I can find it. There we go. And then if there's multiple things in here, you would do an active skill and you would select Animate Guardian. Perfect. So we can go down and we can look at our Animate Guardian stats. So it's effective HP pool. And this one is pretty important because, again, we don't want our Animate Guardian to die. So knowing his HP pools is pretty good. And then seeing, like, you know, what you can do to improve his HP pools is pretty good. And 1.3 million, you know, 200, this is a little low, but at the same time it's not that bad. But these are very solid. You know, 1.3 million is going to be pretty hard for him to die. There's definitely some scary content in the game that something could do that much damage with a crit, no problem. And that's why I was, you know, scary and hesitant for him to not use Mask of the Stitch Demon Helmet. And physical too, like an Uber Zeri crit double flame blast, that might kill him, to be honest. So I'm a little bit sketched on that one with only 214. Yeah, so that's the calculations tab, just so you guys know that it's here. And it's very good for you guys to kind of take a look and see the damage, see the effective HP pool. And you can do this for yourself too, by the way, guys. Go to your any skill that's not like a minion skill. So let's do helmet. This is all of our stats as well. So this is our effective HP pool, and this is our effective HP pool for lightning, fire, and cold, and this is for chaos. We have chaos inoculation, so it says invulnerable. So yeah, so not too bad. And I think what is 300,000, 300,000, 300,000. It's a little bit less than the build that I had, but that's still very, very good. I'm sure he's super, super tanky with this build. So again, nothing against Pigeons Build at all. I'm linking in the description for you guys. Check it out because I do think it's awesome. I think in the end of the day, it's still the most DPS. Let's go back. I'll show you guys. Chest. Carrion Golem. Okay, so we're at 25 million. He was at 51 million, so I mean that's just why I think it's such a big difference, and good to know to have that standard, because that is such a big difference. Realistically, in my opinion, I think his Carrion Golems are doing 25 million per, not 51 million per. But that's still fantastic. It's over 100 million shaper DPS. The build that I just released last night was only 21 million. So regardless, his build is way better for DPS. Well, I say way better. It's a little bit better for DPS. It's probably double the cost, but he also has a lot more energy shield than me, so it's pretty cool. He has a pretty cool build. This is not correct. It's 78%, just because we turned off this basalt fast. It's really 90%. Again, not comparing the builds, but I think as a community we should probably have a standard for this. And I get tons of questions from you guys on, hey, my build does way less damage than you, or my build does less damage than this guy. What's going on? What's the deal? It's most of the times going to be in your configuration tab. So hopefully this helped you guys out, and you'll kind of know a little bit more about how to set up your configuration tab. Oh, really quick, this reminded me. Intimidate. So you should be checking this if you have awakened melee fizz. So if you have awakened melee fizz in your skill for any of your, zombies, Carrion Golems, whatever, right? You want to hit, is the enemy intimidated? Yes, because they're always going to be intimidated. It's a big difference. It's about 1 million DPS there. And then maimed in his build doesn't change it, but if you have maimed as well, you definitely want to check mark that, because that is a big deal. as well. And then up here, are your minions always on full life? Definitely check mark that. If you have any renewal on your large cluster, medium clusters, that basically makes them do, I think it's what, 5 or 6% more damage if they're on full life. That's when this pops up. Are your minions always on full life? We definitely want to check. Like, look at this, 14 million to 25 million. That's crazy. And this is fine to check mark. You definitely should be check marking this. Are your minions always on full life? I think that was everything. Let me just make sure, because I don't want to miss anything for you guys. I think that's fine. This doesn't change anything, but you can click this if you want to use minion skill reset. It automatically calculates that. I think everything else is fine. Perfect. Cool. So yeah, that's all I got, guys. Feel free to ask questions as well in the comment section if you guys have questions on anything, and I'll do my best to help you guys out. This is a lot longer the video than I wanted, 25 minutes, but hopefully this helped you guys out. So I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.